Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Portsmouth City Council regular meeting scheduled for October 17, 2011, here in the Eileen Dondero Foley Council Chambers. I would like to welcome everyone in the gallery and our viewers at home. And at this time, I would ask if the City Clerk could call the roll.
Mayor Farini.
Here.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh. Councilor Lister.
Here.
Councilor Hetmanic. Councilor Spear. Councilor Dwyer is joining us by phone. Councilor Coviello.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Here.
Councilor Smith.
Here.
So that you know, Councilor Dwyer is with us by telephone, and it is our understanding, I've been informed by the City Attorney, that according to state law, we will be taking votes with her on the various items that are in the agenda, but they will be done by a roll call vote so people can hear her vote for the record. With that, at this time, I would like to ask if Councilor Hetmanic can lead us in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening we have two proclamations for reading and presentation this evening, and they are in your package. The first is for National Arts and Humanities Month. And at this time, I would like to ask one of the city councilors, we'll ask Councilor Coviello to read the proclamation, and then if Robert Albert is present, we'll ask you to come forward and accept the proclamation, and certainly may say a few words. Councilor Coviello, if you'd be so kind.
Sure. Whereas the month of October has been recognized as National Arts and Humanities Month by thousands of arts and cultural organizations, communities, and states across the country, as well as by the White House and Congress for more than 2 decades. And whereas the arts and humanities embody much of the accumulated wisdom, intellect, and imagination of humankind. And whereas the arts and humanities enhance and enrich the lives of every American. And whereas the arts and humanities play a unique role in the lives of our families, our communities, and our country. And whereas the nonprofit arts industry also strengthens the greater Portsmouth economy by generating $38 million in total economic activity annually, and by supporting the full-time equivalent of 1,161 jobs. Now, therefore, I, Thomas G. Farini, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, and on behalf of the members of the City Council and the residents of Portsmouth, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2011 as National Arts and Humanities Month. In Portsmouth calls upon all our citizens to celebrate and promote the arts and culture in our nation, and to specifically encourage the greater participation by those said citizens in taking action for the arts and humanities in our community. Given with my hand and the seal of the City of Portsmouth on this 17th day of October 2011, Thomas G. Farini, Mayor of Portsmouth.
Thank you, Councilor Coviello, and I'd like to welcome the Chair of Arts Speak, Robert Albert, and we'll present the proclamation to you. It's no fun if you don't have the ceremony. And if you'd be kind enough to say a few words, you'd be most welcome.
Thank you, and I'll be really brief because I really just want to thank the Mayor and the City Council for just your support of Arts Speak and for your support of all the arts and cultural organizations, and really understanding and supporting the vital work they do to promote the economic vitality of our community. And I want to thank the organizations themselves and the patrons of those organizations, especially everyone who's participating in this year's Economic Impact Survey. And we're really excited about that survey, and Arts Speak is doing that. We'll be able to present the findings to you later on in the year. I want to invite everyone to go to the Facebook page for Arts Speak and join the community gallery. We've got artists posting, and not only artists, but citizens posting some of their favorite pieces of art to that Facebook page. It's exciting and fun. Please do so. And finally, we invite you to go to art-speak.org and be part of a wonderful raffle for a night out in Portsmouth, with thanks to Jumpin' Jays, the Sheraton, and the Music Hall, to really take advantage of everything that the community has to offer. So thank you so much. Thank you for supporting the arts and culture in Portsmouth.
Thank you, Robin, and thanks for all the hard work that ArtSpeak does. Thanks very much. We'll now proceed with our second proclamation. This is regarding Small Business Saturday in Portsmouth. A fitting reader of that would be Counselor Smith if he has his reading classes available like me. And if you'd be kind enough to read that, I'd appreciate it.
Be happy to. Thank you. A proclamation. Whereas the City of Portsmouth believes that small businesses are the backbone of our economy and the glue that holds the community together, and whereas according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, there are 28 million small businesses in the United States last year, and small businesses have created 65% of new jobs over the past 2 decades. And whereas an estimated 99% of U.S. consumers agree it is important to support the small businesses that value their community, and 90% are willing to pledge to support a buy local small business initiative like Small Business Saturdays. And whereas Portsmouth supports local businesses which create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas advocate groups and public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturdays after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. And whereas the residents of Portsmouth and communities across the country are being asked to observe Small Business Saturdays by shopping at independently owned businesses during the harvest weekend of the heaviest shopping weekend of the year. Now, therefore, I, Thomas G. Farini, Mayor of the City of Portsmouth, on behalf of the members of the City Council and the residents of Portsmouth, do hereby proclaim November 26, 2011 as Small Business Saturday in Portsmouth, and call upon all our citizens to support small businesses and merchants on Saturday after Thanksgiving and throughout the year. Given by my hand and the seal of the City of Portsmouth on the 17th day of October 2011, Thomas G. Farini, Mayor of Portsmouth.
Thank you, Councilor Smith.
You're welcome.
And at this time, we have a presentation from the trustees of the trust fund. And I would like to ask, Brad Lown to come forward and offer your presentation. You're most welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Brad Lown. I'm one of the 3 trustees of the trust funds. And here with me tonight are the other 2 trustees, Phyllis Eldridge and Dana Levinson, who just recently replaced Lee Eshelman, the do-it-all administrator, Peter Torrey. I'm going to just talk for 2 minutes about what the trustees do and something about the funds. The trustees manage Prescott Park, which includes the docks and the Fortree Island. We also oversee the Arts Festival, and we have a written agreement with the Arts Festival. We manage the park with a written agreement with the city, and most importantly, we manage and invest and disperse the various trust funds, and I'll spend just a minute talking about those trust funds. There are a total of 76 different funds. These are funds donated to the city for charitable purposes and are held and managed by the trustees with the help of a professional investor. And those funds can be broken down into different areas. There are 15 total park funds, the biggest of which is the Prescott Park Trust, established by the Prescott sisters around 1950. That one's $3.8 million, and the total park funds total $4.6 million. There are 38 scholarship funds set up beginning in 1834 is the oldest one. The donors specify who those scholarships should go to. Those funds total $4.6 million. There are 6 so-called school funds totaling $367,000. 3 funds for the poor and indigent totaling $38,000. 4 memorial funds totaling $388,000. 3 commemoration funds totaling $29,000. 6 library funds for the use of the public library, $413,000, and 1 housing fund with $1.3 million that provide first-time home buyers with loans. We manage the funds with H.M. Payson as our investor. Payson, we think, has done a pretty good job in the last 5 years, and the returns have been in the last 5 years. 06, we had a 5.8% return. 07, 7.3%. 08 was the bad year. We lost 26.1% of the fund. The funds, I'm talking about the combined funds, all of them. 09, we gained 26.1%, coincidentally. It's a good year. 2010, it increased by 10.5%. 2011, we are down 4.1% through the third quarter. We try to operate the park on the income from the Prescott Trust. We do have some challenges doing that. We've reduced the park budget by some $30,000 or $40,000, which makes it hard on the superintendent, Mike Warhurst, but he is making do, and the park looks good. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you to all of the trustees of the trust fund for the hard work that you do. It's always important, and I'm glad that you've made a report here this evening for the people of Portsmouth to understand how much you do to improve our quality of life, be it through scholarships, through Prescott Park, and the other things that you do. So thank you very much for your efforts.
You're welcome.
We now move on to item 5, acceptance of minutes of October 3rd, 2011.
So moved.
We have motion to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? It's unanimous.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for the purpose...
Oh, wait a minute. Excuse me. Councilor Dwyer, did you vote in favor of approval of the minutes?
Hello?
Councilor Dwyer? Can you see if you get her?
Chris? Chris, are you there? She must have disconnected. Let's
Okay.
try again.
I beg your indulgence. We really have to do this by the numbers, so we're going to try and reach her again and see if we can get her. And I'm glad it was only the minutes that became the issue.
No, I got it.
Starts at One Sky Community Developmental Services. Because they're changing the way they pay for your services. So, I mean, there was a discussion going on. It was really good. I mean, I think I'll put this together. So, it's, you know, just jump on. But it's too bad. I felt bad leaving. But I had to. Yeah. But it's interesting. She can't raise from local procedures if she's not going to achieve the standard. How you doing? Did you notice all the signs that are down because of all that? Down.
I know, I was around today.
Yep.
I'm gonna go out tomorrow and, you know, clean my
Chris? Yes, I'm going to just put you on speaker.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. And you're still here?
Yes.
Okay.
Chris, there was a motion before us, which was, thank you, Kelly. There was a motion before us for acceptance of the minutes, and I neglected to do a roll call vote, which I'm supposed to do, and then we sought your vote, and we were unable to raise you. So are you voting in favor of acceptance of the minutes?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, now I'm sorry. My apologies for the interruption, everyone. Councilor Smith, you were speaking.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules so that we can take up item 9E, which is the off-street parking area along Parrott Avenue.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, and this is to suspend the rules for the purpose of consideration of that item, okay?
Yes.
And we can go forward with that on a roll call vote.
Yep.
For those in favor to suspend the rules.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Yes.
Counselor Lister?
Yes.
Counselor Hetmanic?
Yes.
Counselor Spear?
Yes.
Counselor Dwyer?
Yes.
Counselor Coviello?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Counselor Smith, do you care to go
I'd
forward
like
with
to
your
make a
motion?
motion to suspend, to table this indefinitely.
Okay, we have a motion to table indefinitely.
Second.
We have a second. City Attorney, would you be kind enough to make sure that we understand what the import of this motion would be?
If that motion should pass, then the proposed ordinance would be essentially in a state of limbo outside the council's immediate purview, and it would not come back before the council unless it is brought back either by somebody providing advance notice before a council meeting, one meeting ahead of time, or by suspension of the rules at a future council meeting. If it does not come back before the end of the council term, which is the end of December, then it would die.
And then, let me just make sure that I have it right so that everyone understands. And councilors may end up speaking to this and say what their intentions are, and that might be helpful. But whatever a new council does, it does, and we can't have any impact on that by virtue of this. This is merely for the life of this council.
That's correct.
All right. So with that, time for discussion. Assistant Mayor.
I'm not supporting increasing the, so would I vote yes or no?
You vote yes.
Yes, okay. I think that, we've done our work with parking with this council over the past year. I think we should just let this one go. Perhaps a future council will bring it up, perhaps it won't. But I also think, more importantly, that the mayor has just established a new transportation committee, and I think we should let that transportation committee study the parking issues downtown, which I'm sure they're going to. That's part of their mission, part of their agenda. So I'm going to vote in favor of not putting a parking fee at Parrott Avenue.
Councilor Smith.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion. I think it's basically an unfair tax on the workers of the downtown, and I'd like to see this end.
Other councilors care to? Councilor Lister.
I'd also like to say that I will be supporting this because I think this is the right thing to do, and it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Further. Anybody else? Councilor Kennedy.
Like I said before, I support it not only for the workers downtown, which are very important to all of us, but also for the neighborhoods, where if this became a metered lot, it would push everyone over into the neighborhood. So this is a bigger issue than just the workers downtown, even though I commend you for coming tonight. It's far outreaching.
Further discussion on this motion? Okay. I think the discussion is pretty self-explanatory, and I think...
Call the question?
Councilor Smith has been kind enough to call the question. Please go forward with the roll call, City Clerk.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic.
Yes.
Councilor Spear.
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer.
Yes.
Councilor Coviello.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Happily, yes.
Mayor Freeney.
Yes.
Unanimous.
So that passes unanimously. It is tabled, and that is the end of that. So thank you for coming out. We now move on to the public comment session. Yes.
We hold off for a couple minutes.
Why don't we're going to take a brief recess and let the room clear.
Well, we can just sit.
And we'll just sit here. Yeah. Back on the record.
We go to public comment. Figure out.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You probably figured out, those of you that remain, what the council's position on was that, and some people eloquently voiced their opinion, and you got an unanimous vote. We do have a number of people who've asked to speak in public comment on this issue, and with the exception of maybe one or two. And normally what I do in public comment is I read through and say, Mr. Jones, Ms. Smith, etc. Under the circumstances, I don't know if any wish to continue to speak on this. If you do, you are certainly most welcome. But if you are speaking on something else, I don't know can you show of hands of people who are on the list to speak about something else? Peter? That may be it. So if the rest of you, is there anyone who still wants to talk about parking? Okay, you're most welcome to do that. And I know your name's probably on here somewhere, but why don't you just come up, identify yourself for the record, and then we'll have Peter, and then we'll go from there. You have 3 minutes to speak on the subject of your choice. If it's the parking, you're perfectly fine. City Attorney will show you at 2.5 minutes a sign, and when you see the thank you, your 3 minutes has passed, and your remarks are done. So, if you'd be so kind.
Yeah, my name is Crystal Parody. I'm a longtime resident in Portsmouth, born on this hill. And I just wanted to thank you for, clearly you all understand why such a large group of us were here, and we really appreciate what you've just done. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody.
Thank you. And could you please state your address for the record, because we got to do that.
My name is Crystal Parody. I'm at 38 Dennett Street in Portsmouth.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers? Sir? Yep, just come on forward, gents.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Nicholas Mirabello. I am new to this mini city, beautiful city of Portsmouth, and I love it here. I live on 43 Market Street, apartment 3. In Portsmouth. And I just want to take a moment to thank you, Mayor, and the leaders of our city here, to say thank you how much that means. I'm also a small business here owner. I call myself a newpreneur, and I also work at a local restaurant where I bartend and serve. And I love meeting the community. I've only been here for 9 months. I plan on setting anchor here on the Seacoast and exploring all the other possibilities. But as Councilor Smith so eloquently put it, that the small businesses are a backbone and glue of this community. So I hope to stick and stay grounded here, and also park for free when I can, which is very helpful, and hopefully for future employees of myself and my business. But I just want to thank you. I have an attitude of gratitude towards you all. I wish you all the best and continued success.
Thank you. Further speakers?
Hi, I'm Aaron Lawson, and I'm a resident of 37 Franklin Street. I just wanted to also say thank you very much. I work at the Portsmouth Brewery, and I know on behalf of the kitchen staff and wait staff there, we're very grateful. It would have been an unfair burden to all of them to have to choose between health care and parking, because I know that a lot of them, that's pretty much the last choice that they had, and that means a lot to all of them. And I know they'd be here if they didn't all live a little bit further away, so we're happy that you made this decision, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Peter Somsich, I think. Anybody else wish to speak as well, just so I can see? Okay, welcome.
Peter Somsich, 34 Sweat Avenue. Good evening, Mayor Farini, City Councilors, City Manager Bohemko, and City staff. It is my pleasure today to report to you about a project that my employer, Osram Sylvania, and Steve Parkinson of the Public Works Department have been involved with for the past 4 years. I would like to briefly highlight for you some of the elements of this project, but at the same time I want to provide you with a copy of this report for your own information.
Bring that forward. We'll accept it for the record. Thank you.
I call this project Greening Court Street in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The goal of this project was to use the early 2007 installation of new street lighting fixtures on Court Street as an opportunity to install a better quality of lamp with a lower energy consumption and a resulting reduction of CO2 greenhouse gas emissions. The originally installed 2 compact fluorescent lamps, CFLs, which are currently what is installed in most of Portsmouth street fixtures, were an improvement over the previously installed 100-watt incandescent bulbs. However, they have a number of drawbacks. As my report shows, based on on-site measurements of the light output and visual inspection, the 2 CFL fixtures waste at least 25% of the light by illuminating the 2nd and 3rd floor of nearby buildings as well as outer space, instead of throwing that light onto the roadway and the sidewalks. We were convinced that a new product made by Osram Sylvania, the Dura 1, could provide more light to the roadway and sidewalks with a longer lamp life and at least a 50% reduction in electrical energy usage. A corresponding reduction, of course, in CO2 emissions. Then the CFL, the 2 CFL type fixtures. This is why in June of 2007, Steve Parkinson received from our company at no cost to install, no cost to the city, to install 1 Dura 1 lamp in each of the street light fixtures. My report is intended to document the results of this real-world experiment after more than 15,000 hours of usage, which is the rated life of this particular lamp. Here are some of the highlights after over 4 years of operation. Each Dura 1 lamp configuration has a lower daily operating cost, about 2.3 cents, the lowest total life cycle cost after 15,000 hours of $69.50, and provides a CO2 reduction of over lifetime of at least 465 pounds of CO2 compared to any other configuration, whether incandescent 1 CFL or 2 CFL fixtures, along with a better quality of light and improved safety benefits. Despite the fact that Dodora 1 is rated for 15,000 hours of life, 18 of the original 30 lamps are still in operation. After more than 4,000 years of life, these free lamps, worth approximately $600, provided to the City of Portsmouth and has given the city the following benefits compared to a 2 CFL configuration. Total cost savings of $1,290 or $43 per fixture. Total CO2 emissions reduction of 6.2 metric tons. And if a Kyoto-type style trading program was in place, if you could sell those reductions, you could get $31 for them. And it also creates for our Court Street a much better quality of light. And I encourage all of you to go down and see it for yourself, just to see the difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your hard work. Any other speakers for public comment at this time? If not, I will close the public comment session. And
No, me.
yes. Oh, Assistant Mayor. Well, yes.
Could I make a motion that we move up under the city manager's items which require action, number 5, approval of indoor pool agreement?
We have a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Second.
Okay, second on the suspension. You've understood the purpose. All in favor, roll call, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Not used to. Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh.
Yes.
Counselor Lister.
Yes.
Counselor Hepmonic. Counselor Spear.
Yes.
Counselor Dwyer. Yes. Counselor Coviello.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy.
Yes.
Counselor Smith.
Yes.
And Mayor Farini.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Your Honor, if I might, I'd ask that Suzanne Woodland come forward and walk the City Council through some of the salient points of the agreement. Pretty much what we've explained in prior council meetings, but this just reduces this agreement into writing. And if there are questions, certainly the city attorney, assistant city attorney will be able to try to answer those. Suzanne?
Attorney Woodland, welcome.
Members of the council. For the City Council's consideration tonight is the proposed consolidated lease and operations agreement to maintain the Portsmouth Public Pool. Consideration of this draft agreement follows the City Council's work session in September of this year with the organization known as Save the Indoor Pool, or SIP. As you may recall, SIP is organized as a nonprofit 501(c) corporation for the purpose of supporting this public pool. I'm here tonight on behalf of the city and will give you an overview of the agreement which you have all had in advance of this meeting. But also with me tonight is Attorney Chuck Doliak, who is representing SIP, depending on the nature of the questions, if there are any. This proposed agreement between the city and SIP would be effective upon execution by both parties, and it would extend until June 30th of 2016. So by way of a quick overview, the key provisions to this agreement begin with an annual appropriation by the City Council of $150,000 for the operation of the Portsmouth Indoor Pool. This amount would be transferred annually from the city's general fund to an indoor pool special revenue fund so that the funds can be tracked. All other operational expenses of the indoor pool would be met through lessons, membership fees, classes, rental fees, and other revenues generated from the pool operations. Also under this agreement, the city staff will continue to employ the pool staff necessary to meet the programming needs consistent with the budget. Insurance, the city will continue to provide the insurance coverage for the property losses and provide the liability insurance for the pool operations. So effectively, the city is going to maintain control of the day-to-day operations of the pool in terms of employment and the basic maintenance needs for the day-to-day work. As you know, there are substantial capital improvements that are needed for the Portsmouth Indoor Pool, and this is covered under the agreement by what we call sort of the lease structure of this unusual agreement. So SIP will be technically leasing the facility with the city providing the operations. Under this lease aspect, SIP is committed in the agreement to making capital improvements SIP is also prepared to cover ongoing costs and emergency repairs. SIP, under the agreement, will spend at least $750,000 over the 5-year term for these capital improvements, and that schedule for doing the work will be coordinated with the city. As I mentioned, maintenance and repairs will come either from the operating fund or, as necessary, SIP will raise additional funds to cover unexpected repairs that cannot otherwise be met by the budget. In order to make sure over the course of this 5 years that SIP is raising the money that's necessary for these capital improvements, we do have what we call benchmarks in the agreement. So by June of 2012, we're expecting $50,000 to be raised. By June 30 of the following year, 2013, $150,000. By June 2014, an additional $175,000. June 30, 2015, an additional $200,000. And by June 30, 2016, the final $175,000. So for a total of minimum $750,000, because the building, as you know, does need some substantial capital improvements. The city right now is currently providing some in-kind, what we call in-kind services in terms of a little bit of the maintenance, janitorial support, technology support. That right now we anticipate will continue. However, this agreement does allow the city the flexibility to change the amount of services, in-kind services that it provides, depending on, obviously, budget and other needs of future city councils. In the event that SIP does not meet its obligations, whether in the fundraising, their expending of capital funds, or the numbers just don't work in terms of operations, the city can terminate the agreement and make its own decision on how it would like to proceed. SIP has asked that there be a renewal provision in this agreement, so there is an option to renew. That option is reasonably open in the sense that it does not require future city councils to continue with that $150,000 appropriation. That would be something that have to be subject of negotiation, along with whatever additional capital improvements might foreseeably be needed if and when we get to that end of that 5-year term and have to revisit this issue. One additional provision, SIP has also requested in the agreement the right to, if you will, name portions of the premises that are internal to the building, such as lockers, for example, as a fundraising tool. So SIP is really looking to sort of gather up, find those additional funds to bring the facility up to meet the needs of continued operations and safety. There are some minor edits to the draft that's in your materials in your council packet. We've gotten some additional information back from the local government center in terms of some insurance provisions that we're tweaking slightly, but they're minor and don't have any material effect on the key provisions. So that's the quick overview. Be glad to answer any questions. It is a bit of an unusual document, and like I said, Attorney Doliak is here from SIP as well.
Thank you. Can we get a motion on the floor and then questions? Does someone care to make
Move to accept.
Move to
Second.
accept. Thanks. We have a motion. We have a second. Questions? If not, I'll ask one. One of the things that I do not see, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place for it, but it doesn't really address governance vis-a-vis either the RAC committee or the city council committee or the city council. And I know that I had mentioned, and I by no means assume that I have support for this, so I just throw it out there, that perhaps the city council would be present to sit on some committee, either ex officio or as a voting member, and or that there is some sort of governance relationship with the recreation committee. And maybe that doesn't need to be part of this agreement, but I just don't know what the intention is.
If I might, Your Honor.
Sure.
What does allow is any changes that would affect Portsmouth residents in any way would go to the recreation director, who in turn would bring it to the recreation board if he felt it necessary. He as a recreation director, will have the authority when it comes to maybe adjustments in residential rates
It would go to before they would be implemented, they would be reviewed by the rec director, and if he felt that they were significant enough, he would bring those to the Recreation Board.
That would be correct. There is a provision here under the operations and the coordination section which specifically gives the city manager or his designee, i.e. the recreation director, the authority to basically sign off on any changes in fees for Portsmouth residents, and that was our way of keeping an eye on that aspect of the operations. And also with programming, we expect that the current level of communication that is presently happening with the programming piece will continue. I've had a number of conversations with Russ Wilson, the recreation director, with regard to this communication and coordination, and we anticipate that that will continue.
Susan, do you know, I'm just looking for that provision.
Sure.
So that councilors can look at it if they have any concerns, if they don't already.
2.3, I believe.
2.3.
Actually, it is...
There's one of them right there.
3.2A, which is on page 5.
Yeah. Great. Council Coviello.
That only deals with fees.
But also 2.3 deals with the coordination with the city. Whenever SIP undertakes construction, rehabilitation, or maintenance efforts that materially increase the number of vehicles, services, the premises, require a dumpster, those types of things, they would have to advise the city, specifically including the principal of high school, of its schedule of such construction efforts and work cooperatively with the city, including its school department, to minimize the negative impact on high school and the butters.
What about scheduling?
Schedule 3.2C deals with pool hours. We've had good communication thus far, and basically it's going to be recreation director making the call in terms of emergency closures due to weather and other conditions. And as I said, we had a lot of discussion in terms of programming, and certainly what I heard back from the recreation department as well as others is that there is good communication in terms of programming. Both parties want this to succeed, and that brings a lot to the agreement. So it's coordination.
Great. Further discussion? Seeing no one venture forth, ask for a roll call vote, please. This is the motion to approve.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
Yes. Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic.
Yes.
Councilor Spear.
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer.
Yes.
Councilor Coviello.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Freeney.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
We now move on to the public hearing, which is before us for the ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 1, Section 7.103, 7.104, and further amend Chapter 1, Article 4, Section 1.412, entitled Parking and Traffic Safety Committee. Do we expect a presentation tonight? We do not. So that ordinance is before us. The rules of the public hearing are as follows. This has been posted. You have an opportunity to discuss it if you wish. You may speak for as long as you wish during this public hearing, but you must speak on this particular issue. And I would just ask that you bear in mind that others may wish to speak as well if your remarks become quite lengthy, but nevertheless there is no timing requirement. You may speak as long as you wish. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing. I just ask that you queue up to the microphone, give your name and address, speak on the matter, and then we'll have the next speaker. Does anyone care to rise and I'm going to open the public hearing. Does anyone care to rise and speak? Anyone care to rise and speak on this ordinance before you for public hearing? Seeing no one rise, I'm going to close the public hearing. We now move on to item 8, approval of grants and donations. The first is acceptance of police department donation and grant awards. Donation from William Mortimer to the Police Honor Guard in memory of retired officers Robert Knight and Richard Maddock, $100. Acceptance of the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant from the Office of Justice Programs, $13,950. Acceptance of Police Standards and Training Council grant for the mid-level management course for 2 lieutenants, $2,000. Acceptance of the Department of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Grant to continue funding of the New Hampshire Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And that is what is before you. Does
Move to
anyone
accept-
care? I'm
approve
sorry,
and
and that's
accept.
$234,318.
Move to approve and accept the grants and donations to the police department?
Second.
Your Honor, Captain McDonald is here to answer any questions you might have regarding any of the questions.
Captain, if you wish to take the mic, we welcome you. We've got the motion and it's seconded, and we're going to have discussion. Do you care to comment?
The grant that I am here to talk about or answer any questions for is the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force Continuation Grant. It's a long title, but I'm happy to give a simple explanation or just entertain questions, whichever you prefer.
Well, does anyone have a question for the captain?
How about the simple explanation?
All right, how about a thumbnail sketch?
Sure. The ICAC task force is hosted out of Portsmouth Police. It serves the entire state of New Hampshire. ICAC task forces are in every state in the union, and the bigger states like California and Texas have more than one. Our charge is to investigate basically sexual assault crimes against children that are facilitated by technology. A lot of times that translates into Facebook, social networking, child pornography, things such as that. We also worked on the Selena Cass homicide recently, the bus driver that's made local news recently. So that's pretty much what we do. Our job in accepting the grant is to pay funding for people that are either full-time employees of the grant or that supplement salaries, such as myself. A portion of my salary is paid for by the federal grant. And then we also send money primarily through equipment or training to some of our 50 affiliates across the state of New Hampshire. And just to throw this out, since 2007, in New Hampshire, our task force has seen a 537% increase in child pornography complaints alone, to give you an idea of the scope of the problem and how it's growing.
Thank you, Councilor Smith.
Thank you. Captain, how long do you see this, is this funding for? It's just for each year you have to go for it?
Yes, it's a continuation grant. So while no grants are automatic, it isn't a competitive grant process. This one, what we do is we show what our numbers are for the prior year. We show how many affiliates, if we've added affiliates or lost affiliates along the way. And then it goes into a federal formula, and they decide how much New Hampshire is going to get. I can tell you every state lost money in this last one, just because of the federal budget.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah, thanks.
Councilor Lister.
Captain McDonald, could you tell us what the geographic region that this covers, the grant that covers?
Our grant is for the entire state of New Hampshire. We have a couple different initiatives going this year. One of the initiatives is Coos County Outreach, because recently we were up there, but also there's very little in that county in the way of proactive law enforcement on the topic of high-tech crime and how it affects children.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, if I may. I've said this before, and I'd just like to say it again. I want to compliment Captain McDonald and the police department for their efforts to go out and get grants for a lot of the prevention and activities that they have going on in the police department. I really appreciate, and we appreciate you all getting grants to be able to fund some of these things and supplement the things that are happening in the city. So I'd just like to acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion at this point? If not, we'll call the question and have a roll call vote, please. Thank you, Captain Corey McDonald.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh?
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic?
Yes.
Councilor Spear?
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer? Yes. Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
Unanimous?
We now move on to item 9 of the agenda, which is consideration of resolutions and ordinances. The first being item A, a first reading of a proposed resolution regarding solar power tax exemption, and we'd need to schedule a public hearing. Excuse me, on that resolution. City Manager, do you care to speak to this?
Sure. What we basically on this proposed resolution, we'd be asking the City Council to establish a public hearing for November 21st. Primarily, this is a proposed exemption to, as I've said in my comments, in 1977, the city adopted a solar power system tax exemption by referendum. Since that time, changes in the solar power technology and state legislation are such that the city's existing exemption is out of date. Accordingly, the city staff has recommended the adoption of a new exemption. The elements of the proposal are as follows. 1, the exemption from assessed value of property rather than tax. 2, solar equipment cost as documented. 3, it would be a 5-year term, would cap $25,000 a year in assessment reduction. 5 applies to the April 1st, 2011 tax year and subsequent years. 6 expires upon sale of the property. So, for example, if the most that could be taken for, this would be the installation of solar equipment only, the actual cost. So if your cost of your solar equipment was $25,000, let's say hypothetically, that would be the maximum. And the tax loss on that would be for the city a maximum of $425 in today's dollars. And so that would be for 5 years only. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to make it so it was very, for ease of not doing a straight line depreciation. It would just get very complicated, having multiple properties out there with different depreciations going on, and we'd have to administer that. This gives somebody, if they put in, a $5,000 solar equipment, they would get a tax exempt. They would get $5,000 off their assessment for 5 years, and that would be a total over 5 years of $425 for a total. So this is something that we believe, in keeping with our sustainable efforts, is a positive thing. And we're asking that a public hearing be set for November 21st. Tonight, there's no approval other than that we're moving it to go to public hearing on November 21st.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Kennedy.
I just have a question. Where do other sustainable practices fall into this, like turbines and?
Those would be on a case-by-case basis. There is no statute, I believe, that give those types of tax exemptions. The solar exemption is by statute specifically, and so given any additional tax exemptions, they would probably fall more under the federal area and maybe even under state. But right now, for this, as I am aware of only the solar exemption, that's a local option for cities and towns. It's been around in some format since 1975 to a certain degree, and a lot of the technology has changed and the statute has changed, so we felt it was time to update it.
Councilor Smith.
Thank you. If you don't have the information now, you can get it to us in a later report. It's just since 1977. Do we have a ballpark of how many of these we have out there and how many people have taken advantage of this?
I can get you the information. We can. The number of people under the old, I don't think there's a lot.
I didn't think so, and I'm wondering if it's more of an education issue to allow
I think it's
people to
because
know
the way the technology has changed. This brings it so that there's a lot of systems that are able to be. We already have 2 applications in that would qualify under this.
Thank you.
Councilor Coviello.
Thanks. I'm really excited about this because, as the city manager said, the technology is changing so fast, and this is one of the highest research areas in sustainable energy. And there are several example projects in the state of New Hampshire already where even communities, cities and towns are putting solar panels on public buildings and turning the meter over. The meter is actually spinning the other way and putting money into the grid and making money. So I'm really excited for this. I think it's going to we're going to see a lot more of it in the future.
Further discussion on this issue? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Yep. Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanick.
Yes.
Councilor Spear.
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer.
Yes.
Councilor Coviello.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Farini.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item B is first reading of a proposed resolution to levy property tax on right-of-way use by utilities. And we'd be seeking a public hearing, but we're going to need a little bit of explanation here. Before we ask for that explanation, we'd just like to get a motion on the floor if possible, if people feel comfortable doing that. If not, we can certainly have the explanation.
So moved.
Okay, Councilor Smith, you move to establish a public hearing on the proposed resolution. City Manager.
What I'd like to do is have the city attorney walk you through what this is about.
Attorney Sullivan.
There's a state law, RSA 72:23, contains in it, in pertinent part, a provision that says any agreement in which the state or any municipality allows others to use or occupy municipal property should have within it a provision requiring that person or that entity to pay any properly assessed taxes. As a result of litigation primarily involving the city of Rochester and Verizon, it has come to be seen recently that that provision probably requires that municipalities tax such things as underground utility lines, gas lines, for example, and any other form of utility in a city right-of-way. At the present time, there are a number of municipalities in the state that are moving forward to implement that concept. The resolution which has been presented to you for your consideration would put the city of Portsmouth in line with those other municipalities to move forward and impose and assess and collect a tax on essentially any company or person occupying or using or occupying the city rights-of-way.
And what we need, Your Honor, is a public hearing on this for November 21st. Again, there are multiple municipalities that were waiting to see the outcome of some of the court challenges, as well as the reaffirmation of the law itself.
Councilor Smith.
Thank you. Well, I'll be supporting the motion because I feel it's important to always get the public input. I do have a concern with this where we have so many agreements out there, and others will be voting on soon, for people who have agreements with the city for projecting signs. We have footings of buildings that are on city property. We have agreements for for gutters that extend over public properties. And I'm just wondering how this is going to be affecting those items as well.
Well, if I might, Your Honor,
sure.
I'll get we'll do a review on that, but I would suspect where it would be anything attached to the building or the footings, that would be included as part of the assessment that would be derived. So there was value that was derived from being able to put those footings in the ground, so they would be taxed based on that ability. So if they added X amount of square footage because they went into the public way, or they had the projecting sign, it would be included in the overall assessment of that building. But what I will do is I'll check with the assessor and we'll get a written report back for the next.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. Further discussion on this issue?
I have a question.
Sorry, Assistant Mayor.
Do we know how much money this is going to bring into the city?
Well, in today's tax dollars, it could potentially be about $600,000.
Well, I think it's great that we're finally getting something from the state or the courts or wherever we're getting it. At least we're getting some revenue in that's not coming from us directly. I think this is awesome.
Thank you, Assistant Mayor. Anything further?
Nope.
Not Councilor Coviello.
We should point out they're just not going to all of a sudden find $600,000 in Verizon. They're going to pass it on to the users. And so
Well, again, I think again that is the way it probably will happen in some way. But if 60 other towns are doing it and we're the only ones not, I suppose they're going to not just say, "Geez, we'll reduce the fees for Portsmouth residents."
It's going to really create this weird period where all of a sudden we collect $600,000 in new revenue. We're going to see, we can spend $600,000, whereas taxpayers are getting it just by a different bill. So it's just. It's really, this weird. I know we have to do it.
And again, this, you never know what could happen in the state house. Next year it could be a moot point.
Further discussion on this point. Otherwise, the motion is to establish the public hearing for the second reading of this, and that will be at the November 21st, 2011 City Council meeting. It's been motioned and duly seconded, properly before you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, roll call vote, please.
Sorry.
Okay.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Clayburgh?
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic?
Yes.
Councilor Spear?
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer?
Yes.
Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next is item C, first reading of an ordinance amendment to Chapter 7, Article 3, Traffic Ordinances. No through traffic by the deletion of Broad Street, Commercial Alley, between Penhallow Street and Market Street and Vaughan Street, between Congress Street and Hanover Street. Motion, the requested action is for a motion to pass first reading and schedule a public hearing and second reading of this ordinance amendment to be presented at the November 21st, 2012 council meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Council.
11.
I'm sorry, November 11th?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, November 21st,
2012, we do not have the power to schedule it in 2012, so I apologize for reading that way. Councilor Kennedy.
I'd like an explanation.
Sure.
I'm a little bit perplexed.
Oh, wait, we got just a moment, please. Do we have a motion and a second? We do.
Yeah.
Council Kennedy.
I'd like an explanation of this, and I don't know if John's still here or not, of the traffic and what this will mean by making it no through traffic and what this will do with people with disabilities getting to places.
Does anyone care to speak to that? Councilor Smith?
Thank you. I don't see Mr. Frederick here, so I'll feel that this came from the Traffic and Safety Committee. Deletion of Broad Street was one where there was some residents along Jones Avenue were not allowed to use Broad Street to get to Jones Avenue. So the Traffic and Safety Committee at the time felt that all taxpayers have the right to use any street. So they called for the deletion. Meanwhile, while we were looking at the actual ordinance, we realized items such as Commercial Alley and some of these others are like the Vaughan Mall. Those are walking streets. There wouldn't be cars on, vehicles on them anyway. So that was not the proper place for them to be listed that way. So it's really a cleaning up of the ordinance in certain areas, again, because you'd never have a car that would be going down Commercial Alley because it's obviously a pedestrian mall. So it's really a cleaning, the rest of it is a cleaning up of the ordinance.
Further discussion, councilors, anything? Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne.
I guess I will vote yes because it's first reading and it goes to the public hearing, but I'd be interested to hear what people on Broad Street think about this, because I know they've had some accidents on Broad Street, so I don't know if they want traffic, going faster down that street, say, like your example, to get to Jones Avenue.
Well, it wouldn't, hopefully it wouldn't be faster because the police are going to be doing more enforcement down there. It really came out of as a business that is down there, and their trucks had been traveling along Vaughan Street. We have already looked at making no-through trucks on Broad Street to make sure the trucks stay off there, as well as the businesses down there have been very cooperative in making sure that their employees know to please go to Jones Avenue out to Sagamore to head out of there. But this really came from the residents down there saying, people on Jones Avenue are saying we pay just as much taxes as anybody else. We should have the right to use the city street, and rightfully
there will be
so.
a sign that says no trucks allowed.
There'll be no through truck, but that will require an ordinance change, and that'll be coming as well.
Thank
and
you,
the rest
Council.
of it is just really an attempt to, when we noticed it, to clean up the ordinance so it's properly in front of, can be properly enforced by the police.
Thank you, Councilor Smith and Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne. Councilor Kennedy. Anyone else care to speak on this issue? Okay. If not, we're ready to vote. We'll call the question. Roll call, please.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic.
Yes.
Councilor Spear.
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer.
Yes.
Councilor Coviello.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Freeney.
Yes.
Unanimous.
This is item D, first reading of an ordinance amendment to Chapter 7, Article 6, Section 7.110, speed limits, subsection C, 15 miles per hour by the addition of Bow Street, Chapel Street, and Penhallow Street. We're looking for first reading and we'd be looking to schedule this for the November 21st, 2011
So moved.
City Council meeting. Moved and seconded. Discussion.
I'm happy to speak on this one too, if you like.
If you care to just explain.
Yep, just to explain, this is basically, again, a cleaning up of the ordinances. Bow Street, Chapel Street, Penn Hollow Street, we realized we're not listed on the 15-mile-an-hour list. So currently, they are automatically, they're 35 miles an hour. Traffic and Safety felt that, of course, that is an unsafe speed for those particular streets. So again, in cleaning up the ordinances, this will we will have those at 15 miles an hour.
Thank you, Councilor Smith. Any further discussion on this issue? Hearing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic.
Yes.
Councilor Spear.
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer.
Yes.
Councilor Coviello.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Freeney.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Item E has been addressed, And we now move to item F, which is second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 7, Article 1, Section 7.103, 7.104, and further amend Chapter 1, Article 4, Section 1.412, entitled the Parking and Traffic Safety Committee. We would be seeking to moving to pass second reading and schedule a third and final reading on the proposed ordinance as presented at the November 21st meeting. We had public hearing this evening.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
Yes.
Councilor Hepmonic? Councilor Spear?
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer?
Yes.
Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
Unanimous.
We now proceed with the consent agenda, which has 3 items. Motions in order to adopt the consent agenda. The first item being acceptance of donations to the Coalition Legal Fund. Town of Holderness, $1,000. Town of Hebron, $1,000. Town of Newington, $1,000. Item B is acceptance of donation to the USS Virginia Party from Savigny Lions. And item C is a request for a license from Dennis Randall, owner of Earth Tech, for property located at 76 Congress Street to install a projecting sign. Again, the anticipated action being indicated there for you. And then item D, a request for a license from Doreen Mellon, owner of Ellinet, for property location at located at 214 State Street, to install a projecting sign on an existing bracket. And, I'm sorry, there were more than 3 items. There were 5. Item E, a request for a license from Mark McNabb, signs 1 through 3, and Michael Buckley, sign number 4, owner of the Martingale Wharf, LB, signs 1 to 3, and Surf Portsmouth RNC, revised license, sign number 4, for property located at 99 Bow Street to install projecting signs. And that concludes the reading of the consent agenda. Does anyone care to make a motion to adopt?
Move to accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion. Hearing none, roll call votes, please.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
Yes.
Councilor Hepmonic? Councilor Spear?
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer?
Yes.
Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Thank you. We now move on to
How do you vote?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, City Clerk, for making me vote. Item 11A, presentation and consideration of written communications and petitions. This is a letter from Ann Radwan, Publicity Chair, 2011 Festival of Trees, requesting permission to place a banner at the corner of Route 33 and Beverly Hill Road, adjacent to the cemetery, on city-owned land from November 6th through November 21st, 2011. Does anyone care to make a
Move to the
motion?
city manager with power.
Second.
Discussion on that. Hearing no discussion, ask the city clerk for a roll call vote. And I will vote.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
Yes.
Councilor Hepmonic? Councilor Spear?
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer?
Yes.
Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. We now move on to the city manager's portion of the agenda, his items which require action, and he's requesting action from the city council. Item 1.
Thank you, Your Honor. The first item deals with a request for a public hearing adopting the hazardous mitigation plan update for 2010. This would be a resolution that's required by the Homeland Security in order for us to continue to get our grants. The hazardous mitigation plan has been developed by the Rockingham Planning Commission, and we did participate in that planning for the following natural hazards as addressed: flooding, hurricane, severe winter weather, wildfire and other fires, earthquakes, and coast storms. The list of critical facilities include municipal facilities, communication facilities, fire stations, law enforcement facilities, schools, shelters, evacuation routes, and of vulnerable populations. Basically, the plan is required to be updated every 5 years. Again, we need to update this plan to have on file with the New Hampshire Homeland Security Emergency Management and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. This plan was approved by both agencies prior to adoption at the local level, and it requires the City Council to hold a public hearing on this. And at that public hearing, I'll ask the fire chief to come in and give a brief overview of the the plan. I did provide you with Chapter 1. We're putting on, hopefully in the next day or so, the actual plan itself online, so we'll have that available. And so that's what we're asking for, is a public hearing for November 21st.
So moved.
Thank you. The motion speaks to the requested action, and we have a second as well. Thank you, Assistant Mayor. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic?
Yes.
Councilor Spear?
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer?
Yes.
Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item deals with the request to establish a work session regarding future downtown development. City Council recalls at the last meeting you asked me to come back with a proposed date and time to do a joint work session with the Economic Development Commission and the Planning Board for future of downtown development. I have recommended December 12th at 6:30 p.m. for that date, and I would just need the council to concur with that.
Does anyone care to make a motion with request to this action?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I have a question.
Assistant Mayor.
I happened to catch the rerun of the work session between the planning board and the HDC regarding this, and I was wondering if the HDC should be there, or would that be just be too many people?
I would agree.
Agree that'd be too many people, or agree
No,
that they should be there?
They should be there.
Okay. I don't have any problem either way. You might want to, yeah, fine.
We
If
can
that's
invite
what
them.
the council wants, sure.
All right, is that acceptable to the maker of the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it was first.
All right. Acceptable to the second?
Yes.
Okay. Council Coviello.
I'm wondering if we could have a copy of the maybe relevant sections of the Northern Tier study available that night.
Sure. I mean, I don't know, I don't know what would be relevant to you, so I guess I would provide the whole thing.
All right. I just didn't want to undue burden to the staff, but.
No, I mean, I think we can provide it. I believe it's online, but we can provide it. If there's anything that's specific, you know.
If you just want to make sure it's online, that'd be fine.
Yeah, I think it is already, but I can make sure that if it isn't, it is, and if it isn't, we'll make sure that we can get it up, okay?
Thank you.
Further discussion regarding this work session?
If I may.
Yeah, Councilor Smith.
If you're going to highlight that on the website, also highlight the master plan for the city, because that's relevant to it, and of course our current ordinances, which already govern
Right.
all this area.
Yeah.
Kind of highlight that whole section so people can have all that information.
Yeah, all right.
A lot of information.
Further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Hold on, I'm just finishing.
Nope, no problem. You had a lot of talking before we went to that.
Sorry. Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic? Councilor Hetmanic?
Yes.
Councilor Spear? Councilor Dwyer?
Yes.
Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yep.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item deals with the approval of purchase price on the land on Constitution Avenue. If you recall, the City Council did approve the sale of this property. As part of the condition of the sale of this property, you wanted me to come back to confirm the price of $20,000, that it was sale price was offered as reasonable and within appropriate value. We did have a review of that, and it appears that it has been confirmed that it is reasonable and appropriate. Just to note that this property, with standing alone, would not be buildable. As requested by the City Council, we did contact via letter the other property owners and have not heard back yet, but we believe this is an appropriate purchase price for the sale of this property.
You've heard the requested action. Does anyone care to make a motion?
Make the motion to approve the purchase price of land, authorize the city manager to proceed and execute the necessary documents.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Councilor Lister.
Could city manager just remind us where that money comes from to be able to purchase this?
No, we're actually getting money. This is actually, we're getting paid
We're
for the
selling
purchase of the
Oh,
property.
that's right, I'm sorry.
This is the Barone property,
That's
if you
right.
recall.
That's right.
This would be actually, we'd get the $20,000.
I was
And then
thinking
the
the
property would go on the
Sagamore.
tax rolls as well. Okay.
Further discussion?
Use this to buy the Sagamore.
Councilor Coviello.
Just to clarify, this is the city divesting itself of some city-owned property.
That's really not useful.
Right.
Further discussion? All right. Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Yes.
Counselor Lister?
Yes.
Counselor Hetmanick?
Yes.
Counselor Spear?
Yes.
Counselor Dwyer?
Yes.
Counselor Coviello?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item deals with approval of an intermunicipal sewer agreement with the town of Greenland. We do have representatives here from the town of Greenland as well. I'd like to have Dave Allen come down and speak to this issue, but as he comes down, I just want to let you know that this is an item that we've been working with the town of Greenland for a number of years in hopes to have an intermunicipal agreement similar to what we have in Rye and Newcastle. Right now, we have private agreements, which sometimes become a little cumbersome because they are private and not of a municipal nature.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council.
Welcome.
As the City Manager mentioned, this is an agreement that we've worked on with the town of Greenland, with our City Attorney's Office, and the intent is to have a 10-year agreement that would allow extension of our sewer system into the town of Greenland, very similar to what we have in Newcastle. This would allow for areas of Greenland that are currently, we actually have two individual lots that have sewer agreements with us. That's Lowe's and the Exit 3 truck stop. This would more formalize that. It wouldn't be on a case-by-case basis. It would allow us to plan better. It's something that we identified in our wastewater master plan. It's something that they will have to do some planning so that we can, in turn, make sure that we are in line to take care of what they would propose to send to us. But this is something that we feel is of a benefit because for the marginal increase in the flow there, you're spreading the capital costs and our operating costs over a larger user base. So this is something that we have identified and something we would recommend moving forward with.
And I might add that this is something that municipalities do out, not only throughout New Hampshire, but throughout the United States. And it's encouraged by DES and EPA to do these types of things.
Okay, so we have the requested action of entering into the proposed intermunicipal agreement. Yes, Council Kennedy.
We need a
Oh,
motion.
well, let's get a motion and then we'll do the questions. Anyone care to make a motion?
Move to authorize the city manager to enter into a proposed intermunicipal agreement between the city and the town of Greenland.
Second.
Seconded. Council Kennedy.
Who will pay for the hookups once you get past the Portsmouth line?
The benefiting parties, that's the agreement is set up so that the benefiting parties, so for example, if an individual large development were coming in, they would have to extend the sewer to their property, tie into that. All those costs are borne by them. They would then turn that over to the city, and the city would operate it just the way it does any sewer line in the city of Portsmouth.
So they would have to pay to get to the city line? Is that what I'm hearing?
They would pay to tie into where our system ends, correct?
All right. So we don't pay for any
No.
upkeep of lines or anything once we go over the city?
When the lines are installed, we would accept them, that we would then be maintaining them. They would be paying the same user rate that customers in Portsmouth would be paying, and we would in turn treat that line just like it was a line in Portsmouth, so we would have to maintain that and take care of that.
But a typical useful life of a sewer line is about 40 years.
Right. It would be.
They would pay 100% cost of any capital.
Is there, and so what happens if something happens that our outflow or discharge, we're paying an extra rate because of federal issues? What would happen in that case?
They are going to be treated just like the customers of Portsmouth, so everyone pays the same rate.
Okay, so even if we end up in a litigation with the federal government, they would still pay that rate?
That would be part of our rate structure. We would have to pay for litigation through our rate structure, so they would be paying that also.
And we're able to take on this extra amount given our current situation?
That's correct. And we actually, there are some options that could actually improve our system in some areas by bringing in some extra flow.
And as we do more sewer separation, we have less flow. And we're doing a lot of sewer separation. So because of the economies of scale, we want to get more users in to pay for some of the capital improvements overall.
Further anything further? Councilor Spear.
Do you foresee the users being, you mentioned developers or private residences in Greenland?
It could be both. I know there are areas there. some residential areas that I think they're looking to investigate putting sewers in. But there was the IMAX theater that was talking about coming in several months ago, who have since, I guess that project is no longer there, but they were interested in getting sewer extended there. So if there's a potential for development there, then likely the developer would be paying to extend that sewer down to their property.
And is there any similar talk going on for water utility?
The area we're serving is already served by the Portsmouth water system.
So when you meter will you meter in the same fashion that you meter when you have the 1 meter for the water? Okay.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
I have one more question, and it kind of came out of today's news that some of Lowe's were shutting down. When that happens, how does that affect this process? If one of these franchising, I think you called it, existing franchise, if something happens there, does it affect it in any way?
Well, I think there's still Target there, so you still have a customer there that's paying for sewer flow. It's no different than if it were to happen in Portsmouth. If a business closes, then you're not going to be paying to operate that portion of the system. They're not using any water, so they wouldn't be paying sewer fees. But in most cases, somebody else comes in and finds a different use for that property.
Additional discussion on this issue? Anything further from anyone? Okay, roll call, please.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic. Councilor Spear.
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer. Councilor Coviello.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Farini.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Your Honor, since we've already taken up the approval of the pool agreement, that's all I have under my name, other than items that are listed in the informational section of the agenda. If there are any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them.
Questions for the city manager? If not, I'll go forward with the mayor's portion of the agenda. First, I'd like to do appointments for consideration. Robert Pollard, reappointment to the Pierce Island Committee, and these are all reappointment unless I otherwise specify. Stephen Marison, Pierce Island Committee. John McVeigh, Pierce Island Committee. Richard Smith, Pierce Island Committee. Harold Whitehouse, Pierce Island Committee. John Simon, Pierce Island Committee. John Ritchie, Planning Board. James Feely, Taxi Commission. Paul Ford, Taxi Commission. Peter Brasciano, Taxi Commission. And Stephen McCarthy for appointment to the Portsmouth Housing Authority. Those are for consideration. I also want to say at this time I want to thank people for responding to the letter that I sent out in concert with the city clerk to get people to address their terms closing so that we have smooth transition in government, and I do appreciate those responses, and that's for approval. We have two for voting. The first is John O'Leary for reappointment to the Board of Library Trustees, and the second is Grace Lessner for reappointment to the Board of Library Trustees. Does anyone?
Moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're gonna do a roll call, please.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne.
Yes.
Councilor Lister.
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic.
Yes.
Councilor Spear.
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer.
Yes.
Councilor Coviello.
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Smith.
Yes.
Mayor Farini.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Next, under the Blue Ribbon Committee for Transportation, I've already talked with everyone. The only thing I would note for the record, and this is for Councilor Dwyer, that it appears that Councilor Dwyer may not serve and that we may have someone else from the Economic Development Commission to serve. Otherwise, I think we've listed everyone, and I appreciate the individuals indicating that they would serve. I just recently heard from Paige, so we'll be ready to go, and we'll try to get that teed up and stood up, as they say, as promptly as we can, and we'll have the name of the additional Economic Development Commission member, because Councilor Dwyer really isn't on enough committees anyway. So with that, I appreciate your help and people who made suggestions to me for personnel. We've got some great people on that committee. I think they'll do a good job. With that, I have nothing further, and I would move on to item C, which we have Councilor Kennedy and a letter of support of the Tiger Grant. Councilor Kennedy.
The Port Authority is looking for a letter of support from our city for the Tiger Grant, which is a transportation investment generating economic recovery project. And basically it would be upgrading the terminal and doing some projects that we know need to be done desperately. It's federal money, and we would be looking for a letter of support, so I'm asking for my fellow councilors to submit this letter along with the mayor to the federal government to support our port, which is in the city of Portsmouth, and let them go forward with the grant application.
Thank you, Councilor Kennedy. And what we may do, you have a letter before you. We may want to say that if indeed it does have unanimous council support, we'd want to make an indication of that as well. And so with that, you do have the letter before you. You've had an opportunity to read it. I don't know that we, well, let's get a vote. Let's get a vote since we're here. So we need a motion.
Make a motion that we put forward this letter to the federal government in support of the Tiger grant application put forward by the New Hampshire Port Authority.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Kennedy. Thank you as well for the explanation. People wish to discuss this further? If not, we'll ask for a roll call vote.
Assistant Mayor Noveline Claiborne?
Yes.
Councilor Lister?
Yes.
Councilor Hetmanic?
Yes.
Councilor Spear?
Yes.
Councilor Dwyer? Yes. Councilor Coviello?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Farini?
Yes.
That's unanimous.
Thank you all from the port.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Kennedy, and thank you all on that committee for the hard work over there. We have miscellaneous unfinished business. I'll note under that we do have our next meeting will be the canvass of the vote on November 10, and that's do we have a time for that typically?
It's usually at
6 o'clock.
Yes.
So that you know, I once got a call from the city manager in my car having missed the canvass of a vote post-election. And he informed me that it was prudent that I attend, but at that point it was too late because I had not gotten the time right. So we want to remember that that's 6 o'clock, and that will be our next meeting before the meetings in December, not counting the work session. So with that, anything further under miscellaneous business, Assistant Mayor?
I noticed we have some things scheduled for December. Are we planning to get the police study report back before the end of the year? Does anybody know?
Anyone care to speak to that?
Well,
Councilor Hetmanic.
I'm the council rep, and I'm not sure it's supposed to be in process about now, but we haven't heard anything.
Well, we'll make an inquiry between now and the next meeting. The city manager is making a note, I see. So thank you for that point of information, Councilor. Yes. Do I have other people raising their hand? Oh, City Clerk.
I'd just like to announce that the absentee ballots for the municipal election are available at our office. The application is online at cityofportsmouth.com. If you have questions, you can certainly call our office at 610-7245. The polling hours will be 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., and the information relative to any items regarding the election are on our website. And we still are awaiting a date from the Secretary of State for the presidential primary, but it is looking to be in December at this time.
Starting down here, Councilor Smith.
Thank you, if I may. To the city clerk, Ms. Barnaby, do we have a change also in one of the wards on because of the middle school construction?
Yes, we do.
Want to get that?
Thank you.
Great, thank you for bringing that up. Ward 2 polling location, which normally is held at the middle school, will be relocated to the North Parish House on 355 Spinney Road. And letters will be going out to all Ward 2 residents.
Thank you, Councilor Smith and City Clerk. I see that our two jolly members of the press out there shaking their heads up and down so that people get that notice as well, and we appreciate that. Councilor Kennedy, then Councilor Coviello. Councilor Coviello.
A few questions for the City Clerk. Will there be a sign at the middle school that day?
Yes.
Great.
I'm actually going to have Public Works try to put up one of their flashing signs.
Okay. And then a question about the absentee ballot system that I was asked that I don't know the answer to. When people come in now for an absentee ballot, are they voting right there, or is there a time period where the application has to be approved? And
No, they can either vote at the counter or take the ballot with them. They do have to be a registered voter in order to receive an absentee ballot. They complete an application, we review the checklist, make sure they're registered, and issue their ballot.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just an ask on that sign, too. I don't know if that sign would be up the day of the election, but maybe the day before, too. I don't know
It'll
what
be
the
up
planning
several
is.
days before.
Okay, so that's great. It'll be up a couple
Yep.
days before, and then everybody driving there will see.
Yep.
Further issues for miscellaneous unfinished business? Hearing none.
Adjournment?
Motion for adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, and we don't need that. We'll take that's unanimous, and I wish you all well in the next few weeks. Take care.
Thank you.